Namaskar. Dear devotees, today's Pravachan by Shri Brahmachaitanya Maharaj teaches us the right spirit in which good deeds should be done, without pride, without attachment, and as an offering to God. After listening to Maharaj's words, we will reflect on a story from the life of the great Nath yogi Revan Nath, whose life demonstrates this teaching in action. Prideless, selflessness. The good turns are service to the God. It is essential for everyone to have an obliging nature, but discretion must be used in deciding who should help and when. The primary need of every field, for instance, is enough water for itself. Only if it has any to spare should it think of passing it on to another field that is in need. Similarly, those alone can be true philanthropes who have first liberated themselves. They reincarnate themselves only to uplift others. Now, does that mean that the common man should not at all think of doing anything for others? Not so at all. Everyone must have an inclination to make oneself useful to the deserving so far as one can, but there are the obvious limits of one's capacities. Real altruism consists in exerting for others, not with selfishness or pride of doership, but purely as service to God. This, naturally, is free from undesirable consequences. However, this is not easy. A common man feels self-righteous and falls an easy prey to self-esteem and pride of doership. Therefore, whenever a chance arises to do something for others, one should avail oneself of it, but in a spirit of thankfulness to God for this grace and begging for further similar opportunities to serve Him. If we fail to keep this thought in the forefront of awareness, there is no knowing when pride of doership will sneak into the heart and cause a downfall. One must maintain constant vigil in this regard. The straightforward meaning of philanthropy or altruism is doing something for others. This evidently calls for two persons, the obliger and the obliged. The common man thinks in terms of two entities, himself and the rest of the world. This world is obviously different for each individual, peculiar to each person. When we get a chance to do something for another, we feel elated at having obliged someone, thus falling an easy prey to a sense of superiority and to egoism and pride. Even those reputed as philanthropists, but without firm faith in God, will sooner or later fall a prey to expecting or seeking public esteem and honor. All saints have therefore cautioned us to be specially vigilant about this. If we remain constantly in nama, egoism is naturally ousted, vigilance becomes easy, and the mind attains contentment and placidity. Revan Nath, one of the revered Navnath Siddhas, lived as an embodiment of yogic wisdom and divine service. His power lay not in display of miracles, but in his quiet humility and detachment from pride. In one well-known incident, a village was suffering under a terrible drought. The people, knowing Revan Nath's spiritual greatness, begged him to bring water through divine means. But instead of using siddhis, Revan Nath instructed them to dig. With patient care, he guided the villagers, encouraging them daily and working beside them. Eventually, after much effort, they hit a hidden spring and water gushed forth. The land was saved. But before anyone could celebrate or offer him praise, Revan Nath quietly slipped away. Later, when asked why he chose not to use his powers, Revan Nath explained, "Helping others is not about showing power. It is about serving without pride, without expectation. Real service is done in the remembrance of God, not for recognition." His story reminds us of Maharaj's teaching today. Perform good deeds as service to God, not for ego, and never for name or fame. Let us pray to God to make us humble instruments of His will. May we never act out of pride or ego, but always in the spirit of nama, surrender and gratitude. When we do good as seva, we uplift not only others but ourselves.